The ocean is an incredible place. Let's keep it that way. Our seafood choices matter for the future of ocean health. Join us as we hunt for sustainable seafood. Hey, it's Sarah Curry with Soraya Films. In this episode, we're visiting Suncoast Tilapia in South Central Florida. This tilapia farm is doing something pretty radical. They're using a low-tech, high-science system to grow a delicious fish that's good for us, good for the planet, and it's affordable.
Suncoast has a special purpose, and the purpose is primarily twofold. One is to try and help solve the health crisis of American consumers. American consumers are suffering from what I consider completely preventable diseases. The big three are heart disease, diabetes, obesity. Also, we're in the middle of a climate crisis, and it turns out that the production of livestock, and primarily beef, accounts for 18% of the greenhouse gas emissions of the planet. And that's a huge amount, and it is untenable in the long run. So we need to move to sustainable proteins. Why is tilapia sustainable protein? Well, tilapia has the unique attribute that it can find its nutrition not only from plant protein and animal protein, but a combination. So tilapia is an omnivore. So it's an earth-friendly fish to grow because we will not be using up many of the ocean resources to grow it. So we're trying to get a product to market that is not only healthy for you to eat, but is also healthy for the planet. And we think that they're both very important goals, and what we do here is trying to address those two big issues. On top of that, it's made right here in the U.S. in South Florida.
In the United States, we eat hundreds of millions of pounds of tilapia, and essentially all of that is imported, either in the form of frozen fillets from Asia or fresh fillets from Central America. Michael has been in this industry for nearly 40 years, and his farm is a rare third option for American consumers.
So what we do at the farm level, you could describe it as applied ecology. You put fish like the tilapia in an environment that's conducive for them to thrive, and that's what we do. And tilapia, which has been around for over 20 million years, is a fish that is most comfortable in a lake or in a pond environment. And what's in a lake? Well, there's other microorganisms that are living in the lake, other algal species, phytoplankton, other zooplankton species, and the tilapia is sort of a top predator in that food chain. We try and recreate what that food chain is in each of the production tanks. If we can do that, then the tilapia is in its comfort zone, and everything that it evolved to do in nature, it can be expressed in the fish tank. Separate from the tanks, we're growing these organisms, and then on day one of the seeding of the tank, we then inoculate certain amounts of bacteria, certain amounts of phytoplankton, certain amounts of zooplankton, and they quickly come into balance with each other. If we were to wait for all this to happen at their natural rate, it would take days and months for all these organisms to colonize the water. We're able to create that whole process instantly, and we call it instacession rather than succession, and that instantly provides all the components in the water that we need for the water to become balanced. We call that system the BEAST system, for biologically efficient aquaculture system technology, because all these natural processes that are occurring in the water right next to the tilapia are maintaining very, very good water quality. And most issues with fish husbandry usually start at some issue in water quality. Something goes out of whack. The oxygen goes down, the ammonia goes up, the fish gets stressed, stress becomes disease, disease becomes death, and then you have business loss. So by being able to do all this biology in place, we create a stable system. And in the end, we get a tilapia that is in an unstressful situation, growing at their best potential, surviving at their highest rate, and tasting like a fish is supposed to taste because they're in an environment as natural as can be. One of the stigmas with tilapia is their taste, and this has been as a result of tilapia that have been grown in water that's very foul, and the tilapia can only be what their environment is, and so that off flavor is from bad water quality conditions. It doesn't mean that the tilapia itself is a bad fish, it just means that it's grown in terrible conditions. American consumers are forced to eat tilapia from imports because there are no fresh tilapia producers in the US. Here we put the tilapia in a very natural environment, and so all we get in the end is tilapia tasting like the fish that it's meant to taste like. We plan to be the first and largest provider of fresh fillets for the American consumer.
Tilapia is already the fourth most consumed seafood in the United States, over 1 million pounds a week in recent years, meaning that the American consumer already knows tilapia, they just don't know that they can have a better product by having Suncoast tilapia.
This is a unique operation in a unique microclimate here in South Florida. Florida is one of the most blessed states with groundwater supply. That's the only water that we use in our tanks. It comes out of the ground crystal clear. All we do is aerate it to put oxygen in the water, and then it goes into the tanks. But we use very minimal amounts of water. The idea with our grow method is to be the lowest resource consumption possible, to have the lowest footprint. Our facility is a gutter-connected greenhouse structure made out of galvanized aluminum and then covered in poly and plastic, much like you would cover a nursery greenhouse. That affords us the ability to capture sun radiation and to fuel the photosynthetic process of the microalgae that are in the tanks, but we shade some of the greenhouses to make sure that the water does not reach a higher temperature than we want. We can control the temperature all year round so that our product can be available every single week of the year. This is a farming operation and it is a business. And to run it effectively, you have to be very efficient in how you use your space. The best way to grow tilapia is to grow it in a 3-phase system. Fingerlings come in, they're roughly about a month old. We keep them in the nursery tanks, which actually doubled as a quarantine. After they clear that 30-day window, we move them to the juvenile tanks, and they will spend a couple of months in the juvenile tanks. By then, they're ready to go into the grow-out tanks, where they're gonna spend another 6 months.
At each stage of growth, the tilapia get a different size and type of food. But in addition to the pellets, they receive about 20% of their nutrition from the phytoplankton and zooplankton in the water itself. These are microscopic plants and animals. So this lake ecosystem that was created in the tanks when the fish were babies, that's full of these microscopic critters, moves with the fish as they move through the farm, from the nursery tank to the juvenile tank to the grow-out tanks. The phytoplankton, zooplankton, and bacteria in the water serve several purposes. One is to help feed the tilapia. Another is to help oxygenate the water. And another is to break down waste products from the tilapia, moving these resources back into the food chain.
We use very little water because we don't need to flush any solids out. All the solids are taken care of by the microbiological process in the tank. And so this is a very earth-friendly process that turns out to be much more efficient and low cost than traditional methods. For instance, ammonia is almost always zero because there's bacteria there absorbing the ammonia, converting the nitrogen in ammonia to end up in protein in the form of zooplankton that then the tilapia can eat. And so the beast is a very efficient system because it is not only providing the right environment for the tilapia, but all the waste products in the tank are being processed in a natural way. At 9 months, which is the full length of the life cycle here of the tilapia, the grow-out tank gets fully harvested, and then all the water ends up in a percolation pond, which is an established way of treating final effluents of farms here in Florida. In the harvest process, we seine the fish. We then anesthetize the fish so they are not stressed. We then put them in the live hauler. The live hauler is equipped with pure oxygen so the fish are not stressed. Fish are then transferred to the perch tank by connecting the live hauler through a 10-inch pipe, which acts kind of like a fish toboggan, and you open the gate and all the fish flow from the live hauler to the perch tank. So this is how we get the fish ready for sale.
Most of Suncoast fish end up in the live market, and today these fish are being driven to Atlanta. But in the next phase of the farm's development, the fish will be processed on site, which is important for a couple big reasons. First, if processing isn't done with proper time and temperature control methods in place and strictly followed, pathogens can be introduced to the product and make people sick. Also, sometimes seafood has unnecessary additives in it, which are just that, unnecessary if you have a quality, fresh product. By processing on site, they can make sure their amazing fish is handled properly and nothing is added to it. They've enlisted a seafood processing expert to take charge.
The fish, once it's dead, to the packaging shouldn't take more than 15-20 minutes. We have customers who would pick up the product the next morning. Some customers will get it shipped to them the same afternoon. So the longest it will take for anybody to receive that product anywhere in the country would be 12 to 24 hours. It will maintain their quality for at least 10 days.
Suncoast Aqua Farms has a goal to develop in 2 parts. First part will produce approximately 2 million pounds of fillet a year. And when we complete the second part, we will reach 5 million pounds of fillet a year. And just so you get a sense of what that means, that is approximately 8% of the total market of fresh fillets in the US. Ultimately, the goal is to have a big enough business at a price point where all the households in the US can afford to buy a lean, fresh fish fillet. So scale is important to do that. This is a very important goal for us. We'd like to provide for the US consumer a fresh tilapia that not only has a great taste, but has complete traceability.
The fillets aren't quite available for most consumers yet, but Michael and his wife generously invited me into their home to try the tilapia with them. It was delicious, and I really hope farms like these are supported in the United States. We need more sources of affordable protein that don't harm the planet. So this farm is inspiring to see.